So here we go today in this episode number 17. We talk about what is self-love. We also talk about how Eminem is overrated. We also have your favorite segment, how to approach women. Should you talk to them while you're at the gym? For the health segment, we actually talk about Herbalife. Does it really work? So we get a little bit into Hydra Cap again, and we also continue our discussion with Zulu. So check it out.
Yes, I like the rhymes.
All of us are born with the miraculous ability to determine the direction from which sounds approach us.
Let us venture into new and uncharted land.
People get shook up, when I'm introduced as God.
You got that good hair, too.
You're the first one out there with a dashiki talking that crap.
It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
I pull up, hop out, air out, made it look sexy. They won't take me out my element, nah, take me out my element.
Peace, party people. Once again, for my Borinquen fam, I definitely want to shout out Chef Jose Andres with his hashtag Chefs for Puerto Rico. If you go to worldcentralkitchen.org/donate, you could donate money. And what's happening is he's going to have a lot of people that are providing meals for the people in Puerto Rico who were victims of Hurricane Maria. Dope idea. Shout out to Jose Andres and to my Borinquen fam. Word is born. So if you could do that, that would definitely be dope. Peace.
Yeah. Yo, I think Prince should run first and listen. I think so. Yeah. Yo, I think Prince should run first and listen.
And let me because I think if I talk about the violence, I do have to talk about some of the groups that I mentioned. Now, blacks. Did I say black space? I meant to say. Anyway, let me talk about Zulu Gestapo first, right? Zulu Gestapo was it's something that comes from the gangs, and if you watch Rebel Kings, they talk about it. Back in the 60s and 70s, a lot of gangs had a faction within their gangs that were called Gestapo. And they were literally secret police. And I know the Gestapo comes from Hitler's Germany, Nazi Germany, where they had Gestapo, and they were secret police. They were very brutal, tortured, all that stuff, kill people, extortion, murder, rape, all that stuff. They did all that stuff, right? So they were like, imagine the police today, but just like super worse, right? Just given unbridled authority to do whatever the hell they wanted. And what Zulu Gestapo did was they punished members of their gang. I mean, let me rephrase that. The Gestapo in those days, in those gangs during the 60s and 70s, their job was to mete out punishment to wayward members, right? So if you did something that was disrespectful to the organization, they took care of you. They did everything from beatings to locking you up to making you pay money, just different things. And that stuff bled over to Zulu. So we had Zulu Gestapo. Now, what they didn't do was they didn't really come after members that were disrespectful, because what we used to do to you, if you did something wrong, we just kicked you out of Zulu. They went after people that attacked us, so, and that was during the late 70s, early 80s. That's why you listen to a lot of early Zulu songs, they always shout out Zulu Gestapo. So that, I think, that needs to be discussed. In Zulu Nation itself, we had a security force, and they're the ones that took care of when we had parties and clubs. And eventually, some of those members branched out and became like actually security teams that you paid money for that were contracted out, and they became legitimate businesses. And I can't remember, I forgot what the name of it is. But every chapter had to have their own faction that dealt with security, right? So they first people that came in, things of that nature. They helped do security for other things. I know with the Zulu chapters that I had, we all kind of did that security stuff. We do it for other people. We did it for ourselves because we had a lot of members. So we kind of like all took that hat as well. So, and sometimes these things went overboard, not with our chapter, but I know in New York, a lot of times these things went overboard. But Zulu had its own Shaka Zulus. That's what they were called. My bad. I apologize for that. Shaka Zulus, and their job was to do security. When we used to rock our bees, the green, black, and red, We were not allowed to have any paraphernalia where the red touched the ground or red touched the green, because that said that we shed blood, and we don't shed blood. But the way you knew who was a member of the Shakas is their red and their green beads would touch, because they were allowed to shed blood and violence, right? So whether it's in retaliation or whether it's self-defense, usually it was self-defense. So just wanted to be clear about that and let y'all know a little bit of history. Word. So we're going to continue our discussion about Zulu Nation and Afrika Bambaata, who we call BAM. The first question everybody always asks me, right, and I guess they always assume that I'm going to say no, is do you think BAM is guilty of those allegations? I am going to say here, and I've always said it from when Ronald Savage first came out, emphatically yes, right? Emphatically yes. That being said, I did not resign from the Zulu Nation. I did not dissolve my chapter alongside my fellow members because of the allegations, right? I have to be clear on that, because my allegiance was not to BAM, even though he had a big influence on my life. My allegiance is to the nation. It was to the nation, right? And I'm gonna get into why I left Zulu in the next episode. I know I keep moving it, but I just have some things I want to point out. Now, why do I believe he did it? Here are some personal reasons that I've experienced that I think he did it. Now, let me just say this, to throw it up front. If you are a member of Zulu, you know automatically that BAM, there was all these things about BAM being gay, right? And let me just be frank. Gay does not equal being a pedophile, and pedophile does not equal being gay. Let's get that out the way. I don't believe that. They have studies that prove that's not true. I know, because that's the first thing we say. That's a knee-jerk reaction. We say, if you're gay, you're more likely to be a pedophile. And that's not true. Anyway, so there have always been rumors of him being gay. People have said things, Now, BAM has never self-ID'd as gay or homosexual. And in interviews with BAM, no one has ever brought that up. A lot of people outside the nation, when you tell them this, they're always in shock and they don't believe you. And that's because it's, when you're in the nation, you're going to know certain things that other people don't know about. So that's okay. And it actually, literally, I think someone's sexual orientation is really nobody's business, to be honest. But that being said, those are not there was always rumors of him being with young boys. There was always rumors of that. It was, I've never, knowing what I know now, back then, before that, I didn't know of anybody personally, and here's where the personal comes in. There were certain young boys, right? And when I say young, I mean under the age of 18. Right, that were within his circle that had a certain amount of power that older people that have been in Zulu and that have put in work did not have. Remember that Zulu had to have a hierarchy of a gang, right? And really any organization, right? And because, it came from a gang, right? That usually was black space. You had to put in work to get into certain positions of power. It just makes sense. You can't just show up one day and then all of a sudden you get all this power. But there were some people within his circle, young boys, that had a certain amount of power that other people did not have, and we were like, where did it come from, right? And we also knew that BAM did a lot of handpicking, right? Which is an issue that I've always had, right? He always picked certain people to be in charge. And because he was BAM, nobody questioned it, right? Of course, he's the Amon-Ra of hip-hop, so no one's going to question him, no one's going to say anything. People might, rumble and talk behind his back and stuff like that and ask questions behind, but no one actually officially asked questions. So that was the first thing, like when the Ronald Savage allegations came out, that's the first thing I thought of, because I knew some people personally who worked for him that I was kind of like, wow, this person is really young, and and he has all this power. And I'm not saying I'm not the jealous type, because I'm 44. I don't have a problem with working with somebody that's younger than me. It happens all the time. So I'm cool with that. And most young people that I've worked for are very capable. But that was something that I've always questioned. And then there were people that, abruptly left Zulu that worked for him. And they always left under mysterious circumstances, meaning they just left. They just up and left. Like one day they're all about Zulu, all about this. And then the next day they're gone, which is not unusual, right? The second thing that bothered me a lot, and it's something that I complained about to World Council and to a lot of other people, was how Zulu, and I know Bam had a hand in this, how many, there were a lot of violent factions within Zulu. Now, throughout the history of Zulu, there's always been violence, right? Because remember, Zulu came from a gang. On top of that, you have a lot of people that joined Zulu that used to be part of other gangs that had beefs with, other gangs, right? So you might have somebody who was a Latin king who became a member of Zulu, and he or she still had beef with maybe some Bloods in their neighborhood. So a lot of that stuff just bled over. A lot of that stuff was just fallout. So those things happen. But we always strove for peace, but there were actually violent factions. Have you ever heard of Elite 1 through 9? Have you heard of Black Spades? You ever heard all these stories of, Zulu Gestapo? Like you hear all these, and you don't even hear, you know members of Zulu Gestapo, members of Black Spades, members of Elite 1, and it's like there were all these violent factions that were allowed. They were allowed to thrive. There wasn't a situation where, something happened in California that we didn't know about. It was never that. Actually, the chapters outside of New York City were actually very, very tame, very respected, and did not deal in violence, right? It was usually headquarters that dealt with violent situations. And I understand people are going to, and a lot of times when I brought this up, a lot of people from headquarters or the Bronx would be like, hey, you're not in New York anymore. You don't understand how it is out here, et cetera, et cetera. And you know what? In some situations, I could probably let it fly. But I thought we were an organization for peace, so I always had an issue with that, and I always spoke out against that. And a lot of other members of Zulu spoke out against that. And but once Poppy came out with his allegations and he talked about how there were payoffs and threats, that's when I realized that was why the violent factions were allowed to thrive. And that's probably half the reason why I left Zulu, why I resigned. Because now I had a reason for why those violent factions were allowed when I was told not to worry about it and that they had it under control. So that's really what made me believe that, that was really the one straw that broke the camel's back, outside of the testimony that I confirmed within myself. Let me continue in the next segment. Yo, shout out to my girl, Michelle. Yo, she brought this up, and I keep forgetting. Like, if you want to continue the conversation on Twitter or Instagram, I'm not on Facebook, so fuck Facebook for real. But if you want to continue the conversation, you could hashtag where my Killa tape at. And Killa is spelled Killa, because the Wu-Tang is forever, right? So where my Killa tape at, you hashtag that. And, I'll find you, man. I'll find you. I'll check you out. I'll see what you got to say. Please do that. And I apologize for not bringing that up sooner. Word. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and nerd out again. So for those of you who don't want me to nerd out, you can go ahead and fast forward to the next segment. Anyway, I'm going to continue our discussion of Hydra Cap. Now, one of the biggest issues that a lot of fans had about the Secret Empire thing was they were like, oh my God, why would Captain America do this? This is so uncharacteristic of him, et cetera, et cetera. And, and it's funny because you see this happen a lot in comics where a character would do something and then they would say, oh, this is not like them. They wouldn't do something like this. But you read comic books for fantasy, you read it as escapism, you do. And a lot of times we like characters because they act a certain way and we kind of like dig them, So for example, Captain America is supposed to be like the symbol of what America should be. He's all about justice and truth and integrity and all these things and taking care of people and equal and fair treatment for all these things that the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence is supposed to represent, right? He's a symbol, right? That's why he wears the flag, right? So, and then you got to remember that one thing I tell people is you got to remember that Captain America was created in the 30s and 40s, right? And it's kind of like when those ideas were created, it only had certain people in mind, and it's kind of like Superman, right? Like there was a time when Superman was truth, justice, in the American way, right? And then they changed that and they were like just truth and justice, right? And why did people do that? And it's not because people say, oh, they're being PC. It's because people started realizing that that's what that meant. Here's an example. I know I'm getting deep into it. It's like when they say under God, right? When you do the Pledge of Allegiance, which wasn't in the original Pledge of Allegiance, first of all. But anyway, when they meant under God, it actually meant a Judeo-Christian God. They didn't really mean, and it doesn't say under the God of the Bible. You know, that was what his intentions were. The people that put it in there, that's what they intended. They didn't think about, Allah. They didn't think about Hindu God. They didn't think about people that are polytheists. They didn't think about people who were, atheists, et cetera, et cetera. So that wording, that's what it implies. As much as we try to dice it, that's what it does, And so when they created Captain America, right, Steve Rogers, blonde hair, blue eyed. Come on. So he represented particular ideals, and he's been retconned, right? He's been, retroactive continuity. He's been retconned. So, and on top of that, you look at how many times they've kind of like changed. Like, okay, we all knew that he was kind of like an art guy, right? That he was an artist before he decided to fight in World War II. But then recently, and I think Brian Michael Bendis, and I could be wrong, he kind of, Ed Brubaker, who's a great writer. He kind of retconned him to be kind of like almost leftist leaning, in his younger days before he decided. And he wasn't like hardcore, like socialist, but he hung around those kind of people and they kind of influenced him. And that's why they had that story where he moved to like a black neighborhood during the New Avengers run under Brian Michael Bendis. And, he was helping people in the hood and learning about it. And they always flash back to when he was this art guy hanging out with all these leftist artsy people. So, these characters have changed with the times because they have to kind of like revamp them for the, present time. He was created in the 30s and 40s, which is why I like Ultimate Cap from the Ultimates universe 1610, because in there, he's an old fucking fogey. Like in there, he's like, he comes to our time and he's kind of like, I want to do old people shit. You know what I mean? Because he's old, And he actually is really right wing. He probably would have been somebody who voted for Trump. There's actually a controversial scene in the Ultimates where Captain America says the A on my forehead doesn't say France. And that was like a big deal. People are like, that's not how Cap works, but maybe it might have. Think about it for a second. People really, really think about it. Think about for a second that Captain America was real. And he came up in the 40s, right? He came up during the Depression era. And then in the 40s, he disappears and he comes back into our time. First of all, he's going to have hell of a PTSD. That's the first thing I'm going to tell you right now, right? Then he's going to go through some kind of shock. And he will probably not be sane because, come on. Anyway, that being said, that's why we read comics, because comics doesn't really ignores all that stuff. So can Hydra be Cap? Remember that the Cosmic Cube was used to change his reality. So his whole entire thing was he was always a Hydra agent. And then people are like, well, why would he be hanging out with Hydra? They're kind of Nazis. Remember that there's a faction in Hydra that wasn't Nazi and kind of kicked out those Nazi people. And then on top of that, Hydra Cap kills Red Skull. So, we're going to go on as to people saying, well, he makes these deals with all these Hydra people. But I think when people have power, power corrupts absolutely. And this is going to come off wrong. Hydra Cap is technically not evil. He just believes that his ideology is the best one to help America. And there are a lot of people throughout history who felt like their ideology, how they thought, their way of thinking is the best way. And they feel like if you're not on their team, then you are the enemy and you should be removed. That is evil. And that's the part that makes everybody like squirm and say, hey, he would never do that. But there are a lot of people throughout history who people thought were great. And then when they got into power, they were not so great. And then one of the things that I've learned about Captain America is that he's always shied away from politics because he knew his lane, which is he knew he was a soldier. And how many times did we have in history soldiers who fought a revolution and then they got into power and they did a really, really crappy job? Just look through history and you'll see. All right, let me move on from this. See you next episode. All right. Just before we go, I do want to say that, November's coming up. That means you should vote in your local elections. I know last year's elections left a bitter taste in a lot of people's mouths. I get it, man. I get it. 45 is whack. I get it. But one thing I've learned is that local elections count for a lot. The people that affect you directly are the people that run during the local elections. It's also midterm elections for Congress. And what happens is a lot of these people who don't give a damn about you count on the fact that you don't vote during the midterm elections. And when I say you, I mean we. So you should vote in midterm elections. You should vote in local elections because that's when the stuff that really affects you directly, like literally the next week, that stuff happens this November, usually after the presidential election. So they stuff everything on those ballots. Oh my God, it's crazy the stuff they put in there. So get educated on it and go down there and vote. If you haven't registered already, as of this recording, it is October 23rd. In most states, you cannot register anymore, but in some states, they let you register the day of. So please educate yourself on that. Get out there. Let your voices be heard. And, we could discuss and debate all that other stuff, but local elections count. Word. So shout out to my girl, Michelle. Yo, I appreciate you. She actually approached me about last episode segment, episode 16, where I talked about self-love and how it's not a prereq for intimacy or finding that significant other, even though you hear people say that all the time. But she challenged me in the idea that she said that, what is the definition of self-love? And, I was going to be like, oh, I got this, do this really quick segment. And that did not happen. And actually, this is probably for episode 17. This is going to be the last segment I record for it because I just couldn't get a handle on it. It would have been easy for me to go online and pull up a couple of definitions, excuse me, from Merriam-Webster's, or just look at other people's blogs and done that. But I think that would have been cheating, even though she's not grading me for that. So I'm still wrestling with that idea. Like, what is self-love, right? Like I know love is something that, to me, love is an action. Like it's a verb, it's an action verb, right? Excuse me. I can say all day that I love somebody, but if I'm not proving that, showing and proving that, then those words are empty, right? So I know that it's an action. I know that love is reciprocity. And I know that love is crucial. I know love is something that that we should demand and that we should expect from other people, right? So when I thought about that, I said to myself, well, damn, shouldn't we do the same thing to ourselves? Like, right? Shouldn't I love myself? Like, and when I mean love, like nobody gets up in the morning and is like, oh, I can't stand myself. Nobody does that, right? Well, yes, there are people that do that. That they say they don't really care about themselves. And they manifest that differently. I just don't think that like I should be the judge of how somebody else loves themselves or not. Because you always hear people say, "Oh, this person does that because they don't love themselves. They just need that negative attention." I can't speak on it because I don't know what that person's been through or why they're acting out a particular way. So anyway, self-love, I should demand the same thing of myself that I do other people. So I should love myself. I should reciprocate that love. I should really take care of it. And the reason why it took me a while to figure it out because I realized that although I do love myself, I actually don't. Because I can't remember the last time I went on vacation. I think I could count on my fingers how many times a year I do something for myself, right? Or I just take care of myself. Like, yeah, I might sleep in on particular mornings, but that's because I'm so tired from the week that I kind of like have no choice. But never do I really take a relaxing day. Never do I reward myself. So self-love is kind of like the same thing you expect of other people to do for you. And they expect that you do for them. You should do it for yourself. So again, self-love is crucial, right? But it's about reciprocity. It's about really showing and proving that you care for yourself, right? So that means I got to take a moment for myself. I have to take moments where I should meditate or whatever, pray or whatever. You know, yeah, I exercise, but I do it because I love doing it. But the thing is that if I didn't like doing it, I probably wouldn't be doing it at all. And that's the problem, right? I know it sounds crazy, right? It sounds crazy, but I usually do these things because other people expect me to do them. And I really need to start reevaluating that about myself when it comes to self-love. I know I'm rambling on, but I think it's important that we really ask ourselves that we truly love ourselves. Like, we really need to ask ourselves. And I think a lot of our behaviors that we exhibit demonstrate that we don't. And I know, like, a lot of times I spend really worrying about whether I'm pleasing other people instead of myself. And then, you know, don't get me wrong, there's people in my life that I should always try to please because, you know, be for who be for you, right? Like my wife and my kids and my moms, you know. And I'm not saying that everybody else has to do the same, right? Because those people might be shitty to you, right? But just be for who be for you. But so when I say love, I mean it as an action. And when I say self-love, I continue to mean it as an action. And the same love that I give to other people and expect from them, I should have for myself. And I hope that makes sense. I hope I'm not going off on a tangent. What do y'all think? Let me know what's up. And thank you, Rochelle, for that, because it allowed me a moment to really reflect throughout the week. And remember, try not to like judge how other people love themselves, because we really can't be the full judge of that. But you can be a judge of how you love your own self. Word. I'm going to say this about Eminem's, whatever that was. I don't know what that was on the BT cipher. First of all, Eminem is mad overrated. Like, motherfuckers give him accolades for shit that I'm like, huh? Not to mention the fact that, and I talk about this all the time, he did exactly the same thing Redman and Kool Keith have been doing for years, but he gets like mad accolades. He's like in everybody's top 5. I don't know how, but anyway. Shout out to T with Q and J, because they pointed out that actually what he did was not a cipher. True. But I don't know what he did. Like, I don't know what the fuck that was. Like, I don't know. Like, but anyway, cats be acting like he saved everybody from Puerto Rico or something, man. Like, he just said fuck Trump. Like, we've been saying that for like the last 2.5 years. Like, where you been at, dude? Like, for real, where you been at? Why y'all giving props to cats for doing the most minimal shit? Like, I don't understand that. Like, white mediocrity at its best in a black space, right? Chundi, like, come on, people, we better than that. Come on. Episode 17, my bad, 17. Yeah, tripping, right? I'm going to talk about, for the health segment, I'll talk about Herbalife. And like, I know a lot of people can be mad about this, but it seems like it's crazy how, like, I notice that it ebbs and flows. And what is Herbalife? Herbalife is this company that sells like these smoothies, like these powdered smoothies that you use, you know what I mean? And it doesn't work. And I know online you've seen pictures of people who've rocked it and used it. I had a friend of mine who I was doing some personal training with, because I do some personal training. I just don't get paid for it, but I do some personal training on the side. Maybe one day I might get paid for it. But anyway, she got on it, and it was kind of funny because she later came back to me and was like, because I told her don't do it. She came back to me and was like, you were right. It doesn't work. And I know you've seen pictures, but if you really do the math on the pictures, there's really not a lot of difference in them. And that small difference that you see there, you can actually do that on your own without paying for anything. You know what I'm saying? You just got to put in the work and just like kind of like, you know, watch your portions and stuff like that. So anyway, people ask me, you know, what's up with that? Number one, it doesn't work. It's really just a dietary supplement. If anything, you can use it, you know, you can use it to gain weight. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can eat your regular meals and then take some stuff. So what it is, it's just a dietary supplement. So you can skip meals, right? And it gives you just enough calories to make it. You know what I mean? Instead of eating regular food and, not watching your portions and eating excessively, you can actually do the same thing if you make your own smoothies at home. So it'll save you a lot of money and a lot of time. Plus, it tastes nasty. So it's not that it doesn't work. It just doesn't do the things that it claims to do, like lose weight. Because all you're really doing is replacing the stuff that you usually eat with it, because it's a dietary supplement. So that's all I'm saying. So number 2 is a multi-level marketing thing. And y'all know how those MLMs are. They're really not about helping people. They're about taking advantage of people. If you go online, you can actually see all the harm that it does. John Oliver he used to be of The Daily Show. He does a whole segment on Herbalife and what it does. It's just not good, man. It's just people being pimped again. And finally, man, you can get those results on your own, man. Now, really, man, if you really want to lose weight, you just have to, this is how you do it. This is basically pretty much what you got to do. Figure out an exercise thing that you want to do, whether it's in the gym, whether it's running, walking, jump rope, whatever, dancing salsa, whatever. And then just watch your portions and, watch what you eat really closely, count those calories or whatever. And you can get those results on your own. You don't really need that, man. That's really, if you apply that to anything else that you see on TV that's supposed to help you lose weight or whatever, just if you do those things, you ain't got to do all that and pay extra money. You could do that stuff in your home. So I hope that helps out. Again, this is something I'll fight you in the street for if you don't believe me, but just leave that stuff alone. Work. So the big homie was talking about, he was telling me about how he's trying to holler at this girl at the gym. He doesn't know if she's interested or not. So let me just say this, and this goes to when I talked about public transportation. I don't advise approaching women at a gym for several reasons. Number one, most people go to the gym to work out. Don't get me wrong, there are people that go to the gym to hook up, but then there are people that go hook up everywhere. But if people are going to work out, they're usually going to work out, and they kind of like don't have that on their mind, especially, women. They just want to work out. I know when I go train, I train. Like, that's what I'm there for. I train. I'm not trying to holler at nobody. Then again, I'm married, but I don't be looking at nobody. I just do my thing. I train. I get in and get out because I just don't have time. And I'm pretty sure most people are the same way. They go in and train. Then again, I train in the streets. I don't really train in the gym. And that's because I really don't want to deal with people. And I think a lot of people have the same sentiment. They would like to go to the gym and not deal with people. That's why a lot of people prefer, and women do this, women prefer to go to the gym when there's hardly anybody in there because dudes don't know how to keep their hands and their mouths to themselves. So I don't recommend it. I know people are like, well, what am I supposed to do if I like her? Well, then nothing. What the fuck? The world isn't built for you. So I don't recommend it. If you see her on the street or whatever after that later on, then, okay. But I don't think that you should approach women in the gym. I think you should leave them alone. Again, they're in there to work out. I know, again, I'm only going by how I feel, and I'm assuming that women feel the same way. But then again, I have friends and I used to have clients. They're not clients because they don't pay, but people that I help lose weight. And they tell me that. They say, hey, I just want to come in here and train. I'm not really trying to let these dudes holler at me. That's why I go at certain times of the day. So it's a good idea, but it's messed up that we have to force women to do those things because we men don't know how to act. So, there's some good-looking women in gyms. Hell yeah, there is. I'll be the first to admit that. But they're not there for the male gaze. They're not there for you. They're not there for me. They're there to work out just like you are there to work out, and that should be respected. So if somebody's in the gym, I don't think you should approach them. On top of that, I don't know. It's nasty in there. I think it's supposed to be nasty, though. I'm not trying to act like, ooh, let's clean it all the time. It's supposed to be nasty. People in there working out, sweating, looking crazy. Everybody don't feel the best, and everybody don't feel fresh. So, when motherfuckers don't feel fresh, let them not feel fresh and leave them alone. Now, with the exception, then again, I won't even say that because if someone works there, they just trying to do their job and get out. You're like any other job. You're like trying to do their job and get out. So that's my advice. If you don't like what I have to say, we can fight in the street, and we can do whatever you want to do, but don't do it. Peace. Shoutouts, word is born. This is a very hard segment because like I don't want to leave nobody out. You know what I'm saying? Like there are people that deserve shoutouts, and I don't want to leave them out. I always do this one last, and I usually write down who these people are, and then if I don't have it in front of me, I'm gonna forget. But first of all, I want to give a shout out to T with Q and J because they consistently push the envelope on how you rock a podcast. Y'all dope, man. Y'all sisters are dope, for real. Also, shout out to Combat Jack at the Combat Jack Show. He just put out today, October 23rd, he actually put out that, he got diagnosed with colon cancer. We send love and light to you, brother. I know you're gonna have a speedy recovery, man. You a strong brother. We got your back, and thank you for the inspiration. I appreciate it. And shout out to Berry of, she's the one that does Pods in Color. Hashtag Pods in Color. If you have a podcast that's something that you enjoy, people of color. And then if you're actually listening to it, you put hashtag Pods in. And she really, really does a good job. She works for the Loudspeakers Network. So, shout out to her, man. Word. That was the shout outs that I have. Man, episode 17 is done. In the can, in the paint. Party people, thank you so much for the love. I know I keep saying this every episode about the merch. Merch shall be coming soon, so stand by. Hopefully by episode 18, I'll have something for y'all. Just we covered a lot today, didn't we? Keep them coming. You can tweet me at Omi's Podcast, OMIS Podcast on Twitter, or at DanTresOmi at DNTRESOMI. Get me up there. Send it up to the PayPal, man. DanTresOmi at gmail.com. Do that for me, man. Look out for it, brother. Once again, peace. Tell your peoples you love them. Word.